topic, crowdfunding. We already talked a lot about crowdfunding. Indiegogo is a very interesting company. We have here the co-founder, Danae Ringelmann, and I think will be a very interesting conversation with Liz Gaines, senior editor at AllThingsD. Please give them a warm welcome, Liz and Danae. Thanks. Hello, Liz.
Hi.
Hello, Danae.
Hello.
Have a nice interview.
Thank you. So Danae is one of the founders of Indiegogo, and one thing that we may not realize in this time now where there's like more than $100 million a year being invested in crowdfunding is that online crowdfunding is actually pretty young. And in fact, Danae is kind of the person who came up with it. So I was hoping that you could share the story of how you figured out, given that finance is not exactly an area that's welcoming to innovation all the time, how did you figure out a place in there for crowdfunding?
Sure. Well, actually, we think crowdfunding is new, but it's actually quite old. And the way
No.
It is.
We didn't invent everything on the internet first.
Amazing. There's very little new in the world. A great example, actually, of how crowdfunding has been pretty much existed since the beginning of time is a really relevant example for this audience. A lot of people know that France donated the Statue of Liberty to America, but what a lot of people don't know is that France forgot to include the pedestal upon which the statue sits. And so the US government was faced with the decision, do we finance this pedestal or do we fund the people? And so a concerned citizen by the name of Pulitzer, who owned a little newspaper which later became known as the New York Times, decided to take it upon himself to make sure that the Statue of Liberty got up there. And so he used the one media channel at his fingertips, which was the New York Times, and over the course of the next 5 months, put out a call to action to the people of New York. And over the next 5 months, they raised over $100,000 to get this pedestal funded. And the craziness of it all was that the average contribution was just 89 cents. So that's crowdfunding. It's just the pooling of capital by people who are all passionate about the same idea. The reason why crowdfunding feels new is because we're experiencing a whole new world, and these irreversible tectonic shifts in internet behavior where you don't have to own a newspaper to get the word out. You can have a Facebook page or you can have Twitter. And online payments have never been easier. So you don't have to carry a hat around and go to people, but you can actually leverage online payments like PayPal. So Indiegogo just recognized that, and we brought it all together.
So take us back, like, what is this, the ancient days of like 5 or 6 years ago
Yes.
when you were getting started. How did you come up with the way that you set up Indiegogo?
Yeah, so I was actually working in finance at the time, and I had been invited to this event called Where Hollywood Meets Wall Street. And I was working long hours, and I thought it was an excuse to get out of the office, really. I was hoping to meet some famous people. But when I got there, it was actually a sea of emerging artists who were all hoping to meet their next angel. And I was actually quite naive at the time. But 2 days later, when a filmmaker who had making films his entire life paid $20 to FedEx me his script and write a note saying, I look forward to you financing my next film, that's when my heart sunk, because the only reason he was talking to me was because I worked at a bank. And so that put me on a path to fix this problem, and I started working with theater producers and filmmakers, and I produced this one-night event where it was Arthur Miller theater production where we packed the house with an audience. We got actors to volunteer their time to read the play, and the whole goal was to have investors there to see the response of the audience and then cut the check at the end of the night to fund the entire production. And everything went according to plan except the last moment, when the investors said, oh, that's great, but we have different objectives. Sounds like a great project, good luck. And it was in that moment that the people who wanted the play to come to life the most, the actors in the audience, lacked the power and the mechanism to actually make it happen. And that was a huge moment. So I quit finance shortly thereafter with the mission to change finance. went back to business school to start a company that would democratize fundraising, and it's there that I met my two co-founders, who themselves had been incredibly frustrated, not only with the inefficiency of fundraising, but also with how unfair it really was, how you had to have a rich uncle or a trust fund. So all these ideas were going unborn, not because of a lack of heart or hustle or the interest of the audience, but because they just didn't happen to have a connection to an angel. And my co-founders had been raising money for charity. Slava Rubin, my co-founder and our CEO, he had, his father had died of cancer when he was a young boy, and so he wanted to do something about that and raise money for cancer research. And Eric, our other co-founder, had been raising money for a theater company. And so when we met, they asked me, well, why don't, if you really want to democratize fundraising, you have to take it online. Mm-hmm. And that's when it all started coming together. And at the time, I was very much, I'd come from the finance world. I knew about investment and ROI and equity and profit participation, all that stuff. And I knew about these securities laws that would make it illegal to raise money online.
Right. That's a problem, right? So how do you do something that's illegal?
We don't.
So what did you do?
So what we did is we tried to find exemptions that we would be able to navigate, and we quickly realized that we're trying to boil the ocean. And if I have any advice for entrepreneurs out there, try to just pick one thing and do it really well. So what we had realized is we were trying to do is navigate equity SEC law as well as pioneer this concept of raising money online through your social network. Granted, the word crowdfunding didn't even exist then. So it was brand new. We were the only people doing it. So we decided, let's just focus. Let's not fight the SEC fight. We're newbie entrepreneurs. We don't have money that, to spend on expensive lawyers to help us prove a business model, but let's just go prove the mechanics of social fundraising and then revisit equity later. So with that, we got to work, and we quickly realized, well, people will probably want something in exchange for their contribution. So that's when we, I remember the night in the kitchen in my, my apartment with my co-founders, we came up with this concept of perks, and we're like, hey, it's an experiment. Let's just see if it sticks. Mm-hmm. And it's now a pillar of the crowdfunding industry. So that's where it all kind of began. And it's
so
actually
perks are what you get as a gift for your donation, which is not an investment. It's
correct. Right. Yeah, and it's everything from a thank you note or a Twitter shout out,
right, to a lot of the gadgets that we've seen
a lot of
today.
The gadgets. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. I mean, crowdfunding has come up a ton in this world of the Internet of Things. Mm-hmm. All these smart gadgets come from people who have an idea, but not necessarily the resources to get it off the ground, or maybe don't know that there's demand there. But crowdfunding seems to be the way that they evaluate that these days. And you hear, I think Kickstarter has come up a million times at this conference, but I guess Kickstarter has actually kind of taken a stand now, saying we don't want to be a store. They've changed some of their guidelines. I don't know, has that resulted in any kind of rush of these types of hardware products to Indiegogo, where you have a little bit of more laissez-faire attitude? There I go, trying to use a French word in France.
Yeah. So Indiegogo, what's really different about Indiegogo is that we're open and we're global. Mm-hmm. So it gets back to our mission, which was to democratize fundraising. And with that, my partners and I set out to build a system where absolutely anybody can create a campaign anywhere in the world for absolutely anything. It was really important to us to empower everybody and to not be the decision makers. So we didn't think it was our right to decide who has the right to raise money or not, which is why we've removed ourselves from the system.
Right.
That said, we've created this equal playing field where everyone has an equal chance of success, but not everybody will be successful equally. But the success will be driven by their own hard work and the hustle of their community, not by any trust fund or rich uncle or anything. And so with that, we've created a very open and meritocratic system. It's very data-driven. We have algorithms that measure the activity of a campaign and the responsiveness of the community. We call it the go-go factor. So just as we don't pick and choose who gets to use our platform, we also don't pick and choose who shows up on our homepage or in the browse section. That's all driven by the go-go factor. So the harder our campaign owners work and the more engaged their communities are, the more successful they'll be.
But I guess what I'm asking is, has that become an advantage, right? Because I think Kickstarter right now has a great brand in crowdfunding, but they have to evaluate projects and approve them before they come on. If you don't meet your funding goal, you don't get any money. And they have now these new regulations around what kind of devices you can offer or how you can offer them. So has being the open alternative helped you in that way? Have you seen a difference because of it?
In being the open alternative, what we've been encouraging from day one is for campaign owners to truly communicate what their goals are, what they're trying to do, what their risks are, and empower the funders to do their homework before they make the decision to fund if they have any concerns whatsoever. And so by being transparent and open and always allowing an ecosystem to develop and not inserting ourselves into the process, a natural collaboration and communication process has already existed, which I definitely do think is benefiting us right now. And so, you know, what's beautiful about our open platform is that we do have lots of campaign owners from across the world as well as across industries. So we have amazing entrepreneurs, and we're going to continue to have amazing entrepreneurs like Ariel, who spoke yesterday morning about the Muse, which is her brain sensing.
Waves.
Yeah, she's raising money on Indiegogo right now. She's up to $250,000. I think she put up a LeWeb special today just for the audience here. So if you guys go onto her campaign, you'll get 10% off. But we have incredible entrepreneurs doing crazy amazing gadgets, to flying dragonfly rovers, to small businesses raising money to launch a bakery or open a bread company or start a food business. But we also have artists and creative projects like musicians and filmmakers. Just this week, a writer here in Paris raised $50,000 to fund the publishing of his next book, which is a survival guide to the post-apocalyptic world, which is exciting. And then we have causes and charities and nonprofits and activists using money to travel the world or fund a health procedure. Because of our open approach and because we get out of the way in deciding who has the right to raise money and create this open communication platform, it really does allow anything to be possible. And a great example of that is last year we had a baby crowdfunded on Indiegogo, which...
What does that mean?
That means there was a couple that really wanted to have a baby, but they couldn't conceive naturally. And in America, you have to pay for in vitro fertilization. And so they couldn't afford it. So they went on Indiegogo.
Did they name the baby Indiegogo?
They did not name the baby Indiegogo, but the baby was born 2 months ago, healthy. But if we had decided who can raise money or not, that story may never have happened.
Right.
And that gets back to why Indiegogo got started with the mission to democratize fundraising and to get out of the way of people across the world with ideas and empower them with the tools and the platform to connect with the people who also want their ideas to come to life, which is why we don't reject anybody. There's no application process. You have an idea this morning, you can create a campaign this afternoon and be raising money tonight.
Right.
And it's why it's meritocratic, and it's why anything really is possible.
So you actually had some news to announce here, which relates to this kind of international democratization of fundraising.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yes. So what's really exciting is we have been global since day one with our mission to empower absolutely everybody. But what's exciting today is we're announcing 3 awesome international capabilities, which are going to broaden our ability to actually provide a more tailored and customized experience to all of our international customers. So specifically, what we're announcing is, as of today, Indiegogo across the world is live in 4 currencies. So if you're here in Germany, or in France, excuse me, or in Germany, you can start raising money in euros. If you're in the UK, you can start raising money in the pound sterling. If you're in Canada, you can start raising money in Canadian dollars. So what's crazy is that Indiegogo has been global since the beginning, and about 30% of all of our business already is international or not US. But that's all been in English only in US dollars. So the second thing that we're announcing is by the end of December, Indiegogo will be available not just in English, but also in French and German. So if you're here in France, you go to Indiegogo, it'll be 100% in German. I mean, in French. Excuse me. Cannot keep my countries. If you're in Germany and you go to Indiegogo, it'll be 100% in German. It'll all be based on your browser settings. So if you're in Canada and you're in Montreal, Quebec, and you go to Indiegogo and your settings are set to French, it'll all be in French. What's really cool, too, is that all of our customer service, which is a huge obsession at Indiegogo, we have a policy where no matter wherever you are in the world, if you have a question, we get back to you in 24 hours, no matter what. So that service will also be available in French and German as well. So we really are here to empower everybody, no matter who you are. No matter if you're raising $5,000 to start a food cart to $1 million to build a museum. It really doesn't matter who you are. We will empower you as well, everybody. And the last thing is localization. So starting in early 2013, Indiegogo will be more localized for our German, our French, our British, and our Canadian users. So that just means when you go to Indiegogo, all the campaigns that you see will still be Gogo Factor driven, so still be merit-based, but there will be an extra layer of localization. So it'll be easier if you're in France, for example, to find other French campaigns. Plus, and this is the kicker, which I love, is we've learned from our international customers that you guys are far ahead of America in terms of how many languages you speak. And your friends and your family and your customers all speak many languages as well. So we wanted to tailor the experience so that your campaign could carry to all your funders and your customers no matter who they were. So what that means is now campaign owners, or by early 2013, campaign owners will be able to write their pitch in multiple languages. So if you're here in France, you can write a French version, you can write a German version, you can also write an English version. And when your friends or funders view your campaign in England or America, they'll automatically see your English version. If friends in Quebec view it, they'll automatically see the French version. So it's very seamless and friendly for your funders.
Okay, but one thing that's going on in crowdfunding right now is it actually is becoming more legal, right? So you're going to be able to, in the US at least, sell parts of your company to regular investors through equity crowdfunding, which is going to be legal under the Jobs Act, which has already been signed, but as I understand, it's not quite implemented yet because the SEC is dealing with it. So as you go international, you're going to have to deal with a lot of local laws. And how do you anticipate that things changing around equity crowdfunding specifically?
We think what's happening with equity crowdfunding is incredibly exciting. We were born with the mission to democratize fundraising, and I had come from a kind of a profit ROI-based world.
So this is what you wanted to do all along, basically.
So this is what the original idea was, and we knew that we'd revisit it if our customers really wanted it, and it was the future. It actually, to come full circle, it actually came full circle on us faster than we could even move, because it was the White House calling us last year when the Jobs Act really started to develop movement. The Jobs Act, for everybody who doesn't know, is the act that President Obama just signed into law last year or a few months ago to legalize equity crowdfunding. So that's the ability to create a crowdfunding campaign, and instead of offering thank you notes or your product or piano lessons or whatever as perks, you can actually offer a piece of your company. And we started showcasing all these businesses that had used Indiegogo to raise money, and it was actually one of our customers up on stage with President Obama when he signed the bill that was there. So it's incredibly exciting. Our mission, again, is to democratize fundraising and provide the services and the utilities and the functionality that helps people raise more money for more people faster.
So you expect you'll adopt equity crowdfunding as soon as
So we're
you're able to.
100% supportive of it. We have to wait for the regulations to be finalized.
Sure.
But we're working with the government and trying to provide all the feedback to help that happen.
But it seems like there's kind of setting up a rift there, because there are lots of good reasons to not like equity crowdfunding, right? I mean, for instance, fraud. There's a lot of talk of this will be the mortgage crisis all over again. There's like going to be uninformed investors putting money into private companies that don't give out information like public companies. So aren't those pretty well-founded concerns?
Well, we've had those actually same exact concerns, whether it's profit involved or not, with perks-based crowdfunding. So we have actually been dealing with those same risks since day one. And that's actually why we're being as helpful as we can to the SEC and the Treasury and all the government agencies about our processes, because Indiegogo actually has developed over the last 5 years some really strong algorithms and processes and protocols to address those concerns. The first.
So you don't think fraud is a problem?
Fraud will always be there. Whenever you have an open system, whether it's eBay or PayPal or credit cards or whatever, there will always be an element of people who try to use your system in a way that it was not intended. And so as the responsible company should do, for us, we've been addressing it because we want to stay in business. We want a site for that's safe and clean for our customers. Because the moment we have any kind of fraud like that, we're out of the business.
But there's also like a level that's not quite fraud, but that's people setting out to build things that they end up not being able to fulfill what they've set out to do. And that happens a lot with these kind of smart connected gadgets, where it just seems like every time I put in for a campaign of one of these, then I get the letter a couple months later that's like, sorry, we're behind, demand far outpaced what we were expecting, and it's not ready yet. And that's not quite fraud, but it can be disappointing for someone who is not investing in like a portfolio strategy and has picked as a VC, has picked their 10 startups they're going to see through and is expecting some to fail. I think as a consumer, I'm expecting, I bought my product, I want it.
Yeah. Well, you said the word bought. Well, remember, crowdfunding is funding. Right. It's not shopping. It's funding. And inherent in funding is the process of taking something that doesn't exist into existence. And that's a process. And there are times when that goes awry sometimes. So that's why it's very important that funders and campaign owners approach the process like a funding process. And that's why we encourage funders to do the due diligence or ask the questions. It's why we've created a two-way communication channel between campaign owners and funders. It's why campaign owners that do an update to their funders every 1 to 5 days raise on average 100% more on Indiegogo than campaign owners that don't do that. So I think it's on the onus of platforms like Indiegogo to ensure that the risks are communicated and that the experience is very clear to all parties involved. And I do think we're early in crowdfunding.
Okay, so last thing I want to ask you is, so Indiegogo, when you started, I think you're bootstrapped, but you did eventually raise venture funding. I imagine, I don't know exactly how your VCs feel about you disintermediating their role in the world, but if equity crowdfunding becomes available, will Indiegogo use it yourselves?
Anything's possible. And I'd actually disagree a little bit about VCs being mad at us. The two words that VCs continue to tell us is thank you. And the reason being is that crowdfunding is becoming a permanent piece of the whole financial ecosystem. And it's not just permanent because it's new, it's permanent because it's actually strengthening all the other pieces of the system. And what I mean by that is crowdfunding is serving as this incredible incubation platform. We had 2 entrepreneurs who had quit their jobs, went into their garage, and came up a year later with this really cool mobile accessory device. It's called the Satari Star. It was a little base where you took your cell phone, put it in the base, put a marker on your shirt, hit record, and walked around, and it followed you. It's a really sweet, nifty product. They shopped it to 43 VCs in Silicon Valley. All 43 said the same thing. This is awesome, but we have no idea if the world wants it. It could just be a really cool gadget that nobody wants. So go back, prove that the market wants it, and then come talk to us. So rather than give up, because they were out of money, they turned to Indiegogo, and they raised $25,000 by pre-offering their device. It got them so much buzz through the Go-Go Factor promotion and through their funders sharing it across the world that guess who came calling by the end of the crowdfunding campaign?
They're back, the VCs.
The VCs.
Okay.
So the VCs looked at it as an incredible market validation mechanism. Plus, what we're seeing is we're also seeing small businesses or entrepreneurs like Ariel who did raise traditional funding and then came back and did a crowdfunding campaign after that as a way to more engage directly with her customers. And through that, she actually discovered customer pockets that she didn't know existed. So again, she was the brain sensing device called the Muse. She thought she had neurologists as a customer base. Well, she discovered parents of kids with cerebral palsy also might be interested. So that's the benefit. There's more. We talk about the 6 benefits of crowdfunding. Money is just one of them.
Yeah.
Not sure if we have time for that. Happy to talk to anybody.
I don't think we have much more time, but I imagine there's a lot of people here with interesting ideas, and
yeah,
I'm sure that they would love your advice, so thanks.
Sure. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Actually, I can give you news about Ariel Garten. She raised $5,000 on Indiegogo from the stage when she put the product for sale. Yeah, straight from the stage. So thank you, Liz. Thank you, Danae. That was very, very interesting to get deeper into the crowdfunding phenomenon.